Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. There's no real other way to put it. Call of Duty right now is in trouble. COD as a franchise is kind of down bad right now, and it's primarily because of Black Ops 6 and Warzone, which is, in my opinion, pretty surprising to say, given the anticipation, given the hype for this game just a short while ago. I mean, even dating back to launch with Black Ops 6, the game launched and it was solid. Like, the gameplay was good, the hype was there. Obviously, the sort of record sales and record players that the game had at launch sort of speak for itself. The game actually had a lot of eyes on it, and those who were playing it seemingly enjoyed the game for the most part. Now, obviously, it was not without its flaws. The game had some issues here and there, but for the most part, the game was playable, the game was fun, the game was fresh. It was one of the better launches that we've had in some time. Now, of course, subjectively, you might like it more than someone else might dislike it more than you. That's just going to be natural COD discourse that happens every single year, but this game showed a lot of promise very early on, more so than what we've seen in the past couple of years, right? You know, dating back to MW2, that was the last time we had really significant hype going into a COD game. Then, of course, the game launched, and it's known now for like having the biggest player drop-off so fast in COD history. The game launched insane hype, and then a month and a half after launch, the game was in a just terrible state because they weren't making changes the community wanted. The community just didn't like the game outright. You know, we were hoping we were never going to revisit that MW2 and Warzone 2 scenario. And yet here we are right now in Black Ops 6, and well, player sentiment is not going well right now. The game is not going well right now. You guys know, if you're active viewers here on the channel, I don't particularly enjoy doing negative, quote unquote, negative based content, or content where it seems like I'm just moaning and whining and complaining, right? I don't find much value in that. I would much rather opt for constructive criticism and pointing out ways where I feel a game can improve and ideally having a positive impact on the game, right? But simply put, right now, Call of Duty is kind of in an unacceptable state. As I just mentioned, Black Ops 6 launched well. The game had a lot going well for it. The gameplay, in my opinion at least, was really good. The maps were all right, but I could still get past that. You know, I could still enjoy using the weapons, going for the camo grinds, leveling things up, playing zombies. Honestly, I'm still having a ton of fun doing that, but it launched well. Things seem to be in a pretty good place. Yes, there were bugs, there were glitches, there were issues, but they were also dropping updates at a pretty decent pace as well, like a lot more, it seems like, than normal. But then all this kind of got flipped upside down when Season 1 dropped, which typically is not the case. Instead, usually when Season 1 drops, outside of like the usual integration issues that Warzone has every time there's an integration update, Season 1 brings a lot of hype, especially to the premium title. First time getting new maps and new modes and new weapons there. Obviously, Warzone and the integrations that happen there, as buggy as they've always been, still bring a lot of hype and a lot of attention. And then typically things start to smooth out over the course of the next few weeks as they are fixing the bugs and glitches and all sorts of problems that the integration introduces, and multiplayer is still enjoying its specific content and sort of building off of its launch hype. In this particular year, zombies has kind of been really steady all throughout, so that's kind of a interesting asterisk or, side point there, is that while everything else seems down bad, zombies is a W right now. I gotta say that, in my opinion. But instead of building off of that launch hype and, getting into the fixes and the updates to, resolve the problems that the integration introduced with Black Ops 6 Warzone, the game has almost derailed since Season 1. Which is rough, and it hasn't really gotten back on the tracks, and it doesn't really seem like it's going to get back on the tracks, which is, I think, the biggest concern here. In the past, they've been able to rebound some, outside of MW2, where it was just a year of ignoring feedback. But I digress. Black Ops 6 now, Warzone right now, Call of Duty as a whole is in a very, very rough state. Season 1 introduced an integration that had a lot of potential. Quite frankly, I still think Warzone has a ton of potential with Omni movement and all the gameplay mechanics and the quality of life updates. Unfortunately, the issues plaguing the game right now overwhelm and overshadow all of that. And yet, there is very little being done about those significant issues. And I'll touch more on what they are here. I mean, we already know what they are, but I'll detail some of this a little bit more in just a moment. But Warzone's integration so far has been full of updates. We've seen a bunch of patch notes drop, a bunch of changes and things, yet the game as a whole hasn't really noticeably gotten better. It's a little bit more playable, and in general, I do think the game is decently playable. When I do play it and I'm not running into the overwhelming issues, I have a good time, but it's a lot harder to have those times where I'm having a good time versus when I'm constantly noticing the flaws and the errors and the missteps in the game. And then multiplayer, unfortunately, has been stumbling right alongside it. Typically, it's not both hand in hand being down bad, being in this troublesome state. Typically, it's like, oh man, Warzone is really bad right now. Luckily, though, there's multiplayer. You know, you can just play that a little bit and wait until Warzone's playable for the time being, right? But instead, this year, it's not like it's, oh, one's decent, but one's really bad right now. They're both just stumbling. They're both crumbling, too, right now, rhyming. It's just not a good state in either situation, right? Multiplayer is now experiencing all these new bugs because of the integration update. Seemingly like a lot of this was not as problematic during the preseason when the game was doing fine and the game was honestly doing great in terms of interest, viewership, general reception. And then all that did a complete 180 the second Warzone was added in, which again, Warzone needs to be a standalone thing. This would probably resolve a lot. Instead though, it just seems like everything has been negatively impacted since season 1 outside of zombies. And again, very little has been done to resolve this. And this is showing incredibly obviously with the community. General sentiment on this game is not good. It doesn't seem like there's much positive going on for multiplayer, for Warzone whatsoever. It's a lot of, yeah, that would be cool if the servers worked, or that'd be cool if I could play the game and not get cheated on. You know, that'd be cool if my loadouts worked, or I could actually play the game as it's intended. But you can't always do that. It's actually few and far from when you can do any of that. So the sentiment and the general community reception right now is just in the trash can, right? It's not good. The interest in this game is not good. You can, I mean, it's out there for the public. You can look at Call of Duty streams and Call of Duty channels. Viewership a month ago, really solid. There was interest in the game. There was hype behind Black Ops 6. Launch month for Black Ops 6 November, one of my best months in my channel's history. And yet now here we are a month removed from that, December, where the hype should still be going, you know, coming up on the holidays. Everyone's enjoying the new game, looking forward to playing it over the break. And that's just not the case. It's now been a pretty average month for myself, back to where we were, you know, throughout a lot of MW3 and MW2 post-launch and everything. Like nothing really that out of the ordinary at this point. And typically this is a, you know, hype-filled season, if you will. There's a lot of interest around this time when the game is good and when the game is playable. And that's a similar trend on a lot of other channels, and a lot of other creators are experiencing the same thing. You'll see a lot of creators posting saying, is something up with viewership? Like, are you guys noticing things are different this year? It's like things are expedited. Typically you see this lack of interest in the summer when the game is a lot more stale and not much has been done and it's just a couple of seasonal updates here and there, not a month and a half after launch. So interest in the game clearly is not great because of the state of the game. The general perception of those still interested in the game is dwindling as we speak. And then you look at something like the Steam charts for the game, and keep in mind, Steam is objectively the smallest platform for Call of Duty. You know, PC, Microsoft, because the Game Pass is larger, BNet being the main launcher is larger, then obviously console being console, it's got a huge casual base there as well. So Steam is absolutely the smallest player numbers to begin with, but just from a trends perspective, typically what's happening on one platform is happening elsewhere too, and the Steam charts being the only public player-based data that we've got show that yes, the game launched with a ton of hype. The game's player count on Steam for the Call of Duty HQ went up in October a decent bit, obviously with the beta and everything, and then it skyrocketed a ton in November to a point that it hadn't seen all the way since Modern Warfare 2's launch back in November and December of 2022. We saw the largest player base on this game that we have in years, and yet it's already dropped off a ton. And again, this is just one platform, the smallest one at that. Like realistically, Call of Duty's active concurrent player base is probably in the multi-millions, right? It's probably 2, 3, 4 million on any given day, but it could be 7, 8, 9, 10 million if the game was in a playable state, if they were supporting the areas that needed to be supported, and instead they weren't just fumbling everything going on with the game right now. Post season 1, you see this drastic drop off, and it's very obvious the reasons behind that. The game is good. That's the reason players are complaining about it, because they know it can be better. They know that it has potential, but the anti-cheat, No one's got any faith in this. They just posted their anti-cheat update revealing that in Season 2 and Season 3, we're going to see major, quote-unquote, major updates to the kernel-level driver and server-side protections. That should be great news. Problem is, it's not fixing the game right now, and no one has any faith in the anti-cheat or their promises with it because we've seen statements like this before countless times, and yet here we are where cheaters are still a top issue in this game. They're plaguing every match and ruining gameplay. Casuals, top tier players alike, everyone runs into cheaters, and it sucks. There's nothing you can do about it, and there's nothing that Call of Duty seemingly wants to do about it because this is not a new issue. We're 5 years going on this. We thought hacking was going to be the worst ever in Verdansk, and to be fair, it truly was the worst ever there when we had absolutely no anti-cheat. But now, even with an anti-cheat, multiple years into it getting updates, we're still in a situation where it's like, wow, we actually are comparing this to the worst ever state of the game for cheaters back in Verdansk. That is a terrible look for Call of Duty, and it's like there's no pride behind it almost because they haven't done anything outside of give these promises for months down the road. Players aren't going to be here to experience those updates months down the road if the game continues on the trend that it's on now. So I don't really understand the process there, right? And then the servers, another thing that impacts every single player in the game. Doesn't matter if you are the worst player or the best player or somewhere in between. You're playing on a server with everyone else, and everyone is getting lag, everyone is getting bad hit reg, wondering what's going on with their bullets, why they're shooting at enemies and blood is coming out, but there's no hit marker, there's no damage being dealt, right? These server issues are beyond unacceptable at this point because, again, much like the anti-cheat, this has been an issue that we have screamed from the mountaintops, please, please, please address this for years. And we've been met with various stability fixes in the patch notes 1 billion times, right? And yet the game doesn't feel more stable. The servers don't feel more stable. And they've yet to actually address this in any meaningful way. And quite frankly, they could put out a blog post saying, hey, we're looking into the servers. We understand your frustration. And that's great, but that's still just going to be lip service for the time being. And until something is actually done, there is, at this point, almost no trust in what Call of Duty says they want to do because so few times now they've actually followed through on what they said they wanted to do, and we actually felt the impact. I can't remember the last time they said, hey, we're updating the servers, and I felt like the game played infinitely better, right? And I actually felt a noticeable impact in game. Same deal with the anti-cheat. You can update things in game, and I'm glad they're still actively attacking the bugs and the glitches and all the various issues with this game, because obviously Treyarch, Raven, they're not in charge of everything here. Servers, the anti-cheat, that's Activision. So I think a lot of misdirected anger is placed at Treyarch, placed at Raven because they are the lead studios on these things, when a lot of the major issues that are the reason behind these problems aren't because of them. The game itself, yes, it's got its flaws. I imagine as we get into Season 2, 3, 4, whatever, the game's going to get progressively better, like it does every single year, where they sort things out, and it's really just a matter of time until a lot of the bugs and glitches don't exist anymore. They've been fixed, they've been patched, but then you're still left with terrible servers, terrible anti-cheat, no trust in Call of Duty to actually follow through and improve the game in the largest areas it needs to improve on. And this is not the first time it's happened. You miss with Modern Warfare 2. They don't really, accept that very well because Infinity Ward just kind of doubled down the entire year. You then have Modern Warfare 3, which a ton of people perceive as just a DLC to MW2, so it essentially has no hype, but then over time, it actually, becomes apparent that, hey, Modern Warfare 3 is actually MW2, but good, and then the player base grows over the course of the year, or it stays pretty consistent, rather than seeing significant drop-offs over time, like typically you would see during the summer and, early fall before the new COD launches when there's less interest. Modern Warfare 3 stayed constant throughout the year because it got good support. The game didn't have any, it had anti-cheat and server issues, but it didn't have like the severity of the issues that we've got now where it's even more apparent, Call of Duty does this stuff with Black Ops 6. Hey, it's all online. Zombies, campaign multiplayer, you have to be online. Just so happens the server issues seem to be worse than ever. Coincidence? Potentially. The anti-cheat. We see all this, talk of, hey, we're doing this much more to protect ranked and this much to upgrade the anti-cheat. And there's no visible difference in the amount of cheaters. If anything, again, it's more apparent. It's louder than before. So it's just rinse and repeat of build up hype, build up expectations. The potential is absolutely there. I think objectively you can say that. The potential for this game, Warzone and Black Ops 6 alike, is there, but it is just completely, overwhelmed by the missteps, by the flaws. And at this point, we're so far into this conversation, so many years ongoing, that I completely understand why players are just like, you know what? I give up. It's not worth it anymore. It's totally understandable. Like I said at the start of the video, I don't enjoy being overly negative. It's never who I've been. It's especially not what I want to be with my content. I like talking about the game because I love Call of Duty. That's why I have a channel dedicated to it. That's why I've been doing this for 13 years almost, right? I enjoy the game. But it's so difficult to enjoy the game at times when they refuse to acknowledge the severe flaws. Truly, Call of Duty has to change this. Otherwise, the franchise will continue to dwindle. Doesn't matter how much potential Call of Duty 2025 has. If it's a Black Ops 2 remaster and they feed off that nostalgia, doesn't matter if they don't fix the issues. It'll be hype for a month. They can brag about, oh, best launch ever, biggest launch ever. And then it'll fall off again. And then they will never say, hey, biggest player drop off ever, right? Because that's what will ultimately end up happening. Same deal with Verdansk. You can have all the hype in the world behind it when it launches in a couple of months. If the game doesn't play well, the servers aren't better, the anti-cheat's not better, doesn't matter. It'll be hype for a couple of days when everyone goes and relives the golden era of Warzone, and then they'll realize, oh, I'm getting hacked on every game now, I'm lagging every game now, and they're gone. I truly hope something changes. I genuinely don't recall a time where the COD community was this vocal and this displeased with the product. And that's saying a lot because I didn't think it'd ever get worse than Warzone 2 and MW2. I think that was the biggest miss Call of Duty has ever had, and it lasted for a year. And now here we are in a game that I think had potential to maybe be a top 5 Call of Duty, truly. Like, I think Black Ops 6 is a good game, and yet they are wasting that potential so much with what they've done so far, the lack of updates, the terrible servers, the terrible anti-cheat, and frankly, the constant false promises that they give, seemingly. So maybe now that I truly do think that the community is as vocally mad, vocally displeased as ever, they might actually hear it for once. It might not just be, oh, we can just wait until the new season drops and they'll all come back. I don't think they have that trust anymore. Truly, I don't. Again, said it a couple of times already, I hope something changes. As we do see new updates, new responses maybe from Call of Duty, and as things do continue to evolve, you guys know I'm gonna keep you updated every single day. For those who do enjoy the game despite its flaws, you know I got you covered every day with news, updates, meta breakdowns, everything going on there, and I will continue to talk about the overall state of the game for however long it takes for them to realize something has to change. If you did enjoy this very rambly and kind of ranty video, I apologize that it was so long, but I just wanted to talk about this because truly as a giant COD fan, I would like the game to be good. So if you enjoyed the video, you want to get more attention on this subject, a like rating really does help grow the channel and share the video around. And of course, if you're new here or if you have not subscribed yet, every single day, this is the place to be to stay up to date with Call of Duty. So if there is good news, bad news, anything in between, I'll be covering it as always. So feel free to hit that subscribe button on your way out. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.